So till now, we have been discussing about the role of Prime Minister in various ways, like the role of Prime Minister with the President, the role of Prime Minister, with the other Council of Ministers, or the role of Prime Minister in various formats. So in today's class, we'll discuss about the role of Prime Minister with Cabinet. So with special reference to Cabinet, what is the role of Prime Minister? He acts as leader of the cabinet. The prime minister acts as the head of the cabinet or leader of the cabinet. So, in general, in the constitution, there is no such division of categorization or of ministers like we have studied, right? Cabinet ministers or deputy ministers and ministers of state. There is no such differentiation or division in the constitution. It is the prime minister who creates this kind of division for the ease of administration. The senior most and trustworthy persons of him will be selected as a cabinet team, and later others will be used as help, like deputy ministers and ministers of state. So this prime minister will act as head of the cabinet, and he will even categorize the ministers, and prime minister has the liberty to decide on such matters. So there is no division on such matters in constitution, but the constitution has given powers for prime minister to ease the administration in various ways. So one such way, by acting as head of the cabinet, he creates a team as well as he even coordinates with other ministers. So prime minister has even power to allocate portfolios and to reshuffle the council of ministers. See, what do you mean by portfolio here? Giving a particular department or ministry or position to a minister. So it is the will and wish of prime minister to allocate any department or to change any department for the minister. So in the council of minister, anybody can be reshuffled with their departments. Suppose a minister might be dealing with defense, he may be changed to home ministry, or a person who is doing home ministry may be even shifted to foreign affairs. So it depends on the will and wish of the prime minister. So he will take decision on allocating these portfolios or positions, or he can even reshuffle these departments or positions of the ministers. And the prime minister even has power to select and dismiss ministers. So the prime minister, as per his will and wish, he can accommodate any person as a minister in his team, or he can remove anybody from his team. And even he can ask a minister to get away from the ministry. So it is his will and wish, because he is the leader of the party. As a leader of the government, he will decide which minister should be used and which minister is not necessary in the council of ministers. And it is his complete authority there. And also the prime minister coordinates the working of various departments so that administration will go very smoothly. For example, he brings coordination if there is some kind of disturbance between two ministries, or if there is any lack of communication between ministries, then the prime minister will take up the responsibility, and he will try to bring coordination and other things between the ministries, so that the policies of the government will be efficiently implemented. Also, in critical matters such as foreign defense, foreign affairs of the country, and defense matters of the country, and technological matters of the country, this prime minister, he will coordinate the policies of the government. So in bringing consensus among the ministries, or in bringing a effective policy in very important matters such as foreign policy or technological matters of the country, here the prime minister will play a very significant role. He has a full power to direct the framing of the policies. Also, the resignation of prime minister. If a prime minister resigns from his office, then it is nothing but the resignation of the whole cabinet. If a prime minister resigns, then automatically the cabinet is said to be dissolved or resigned off. So which is nothing but finally the dissolving of the government itself. So such is the power of the Prime Minister with relation to the cabinet. So let us now try to understand the role of Prime Minister inside the Parliament. So Prime Minister will act as the leader of Lok Sabha. So as generally government functions mostly from the Lok Sabha, he is referred as the leader of Lok Sabha. As Prime Minister is leader of the majority party, he is automatically considered as leader of the House. So generally the ruling party will elect its leader, or the party which got elected in the process of election will elect its leader, who is nothing but Prime Minister. And this Prime Minister will also act as the leader of the House. So as he is head of the government, he also acts as a leader of the House. Generally, the government functions from Lok Sabha. Hence, he is said to be the leader of the House. And he also acts as the spokesperson of the government. What do you mean by spokesperson? That means the Prime Minister is the general voice of the government. So the Prime Minister is the chief voice of the government in the Parliament, and he makes all important announcement on all important policies of the government in the House. So to which generally in Lok Sabha, when the government starts its discussion on any topic, it is the Prime Minister who makes the announcement of the important national policies. Suppose if the government of India is taking up such a very big issue, or if they wanted to deal about a very important policy of the government, then Prime Minister, he gets up in the Parliament and he announces the decision of the government. Thus, he becomes the chief spokesperson. That means he will represent all the voices of the government with a single authority. And he also acts as the defender of government policies. What do you mean by defender of government policies? A policy will be generally made by cabinet under the headship of Prime Minister, and later they will be tabled in the parliament houses. So when the policies came for discussion in the form of bills in the House, and if there is a criticism on the policies, and if the opposition tries to attack on the features of the policy taken by government, then it is the Prime Minister who generally takes the majority defense. That means he gets up and he tries to say the merits of the policy they have brought, and he tries to oppose the opposition members against the things which they are doing. If opposition is trying to criticize the government on the bills it brought or on the policies it is making, then the Prime Minister gets up and he generally defends the policies of the government. And also he intervenes in the case of controversial issues. Controversial issues means, suppose a big tragedy or something has happened in the country, or between center and state governments. If there are some burning issues going on, suddenly if the petrol prices hike, generally prices hike, this all will create a big kind of buzz in the country. So generally the whole country will be discussing on such things, and when the parliament is in session during such issue based things, then seriously the Prime Minister, what will happen during such heated issues in the Parliament House, there might be loss of temper among the members between both ruling and opposition members, and they may resort to lot of noise in the house, and also situation may rise even it will turn very ugly sometimes. So both members from opposition and ruling, they will try to go for a heated discussion, and a very arrogant atmosphere will be there in Parliament House. Of course the speaker and all will be controlling the things, but it is the Prime Minister who will finally intervene. He will suddenly come, not that suddenly, but he will intervene in such controversial matters, and he will try to bring the peace in the house. And also once Prime Minister intervenes, then everybody tries to listen to him and tries to know what the leader of the nation is trying to say. So in that manner, he even can handle very much controversial issues, and he can even defend the government in such critical situations inside the parliament. So this is the role of Prime Minister inside the parliament. So after understanding the role of Prime Minister within the cabinet and or later inside the parliament, let us try to understand what is the role of Prime Minister as a leader of the nation. I told you he is a leader of the majority party which is in rule, and also he is also the leader of the cabinet. Also, he is leader of the parliament or leader of the people's house, that is Lok Sabha. Along with that, he also acts as leader of the nation. Like how he acts as a leader of the nation? Because the Prime Minister represents the nation. When he speaks, the whole nation is supposed to be speaking through him. So this speech of the Prime Minister generally addressing the nation will be on various issues related to national importance. So you might have recently seen where on the corona or COVID issue, Prime Minister has been addressing the nation these days regularly. So it is a very important and critical issue. So as a voice of the nation, the Prime Minister will address the nation and he drives the nation with his speeches. And during national crisis like war, even the opposition parties will try to support the Prime Minister. So in a critical situations and crisis situations, so the opposition parties, so even then, even though they belong to opposition and fundamentally they differ with the Prime Minister, during critical situations of the nation, they even support the Prime Minister to lead the country out of crisis. So the Prime Minister is so capable that even the opposition will try to support him during the crisis. The position is in such a way, it is designed, and the Prime Minister decides what kind of relations India would have with other countries. So generally, Prime Minister will represent the country of our or will represent our country on international platforms. Like he decides like what kind of relation that India should have with its neighboring countries or with the faraway foreign countries. So everything in cabinet, as a leader of the cabinet, he will decide, he will propose the type of relation it wants. Suppose with Pakistan, what kind of relations we have to follow, or with Bangladesh, which is our neighboring country, what is the way we should approach. All these things he will also be deciding. The Prime Minister even tries to protect the interest of the country in the international forums. See, there are many forums or bodies where a group of countries will come together and they work together. So there are many such unions or forums. For example, you can see in the slide, we call it the BRICS summit, where the Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, they all come together and they work as a team for the interest of these nations. In such international forums, the Prime Minister, he will try to protect the interest of the country. See, at the cost of the country, he will not take any compromising decisions in such forums. Even though we are having friendly relations with other countries and we are part of a group of countries for our development, the Prime Minister will not sacrifice our interest. He will not compromise with our country's interest. Instead, he will try to elevate the interest of our nation by combining with the other nation. Also, at the time of general elections, so every 5 years, the country will have its general election. And during that time, the election throughout the country will go in the name of the candidate who is contesting as Prime Minister. So if any party names the particular person as Prime Minister candidate and they go for election, the whole nation, the whole citizens of the nation will vote by looking at the candidate who is contesting as Prime Minister. So such is the influence of Prime Minister as a leader of nation. So, and the Prime Minister is also the ex officio chairman of Nithyayog and Atomic Energy Commission. So these Nithyayog and Atomic Energy Commission, First, let me say about Nithyayog. So Nithyayog is nothing but, it is a replaced body in the place of Planning Commission. And Atomic Energy Commission is something where, it is an organization or a body where how to use, how the country should use its atomic, molecules or atomic elements in the progress of the country. So this is about Prime Minister as a leader of the nation. So just for your understanding, I am giving a glimpse of Niti Aayog and this Atomic Commission, because I told you that in the role of Prime Minister as leader of the nation, he acts as chairman of Niti Aayog as well as Atomic Energy Commission. I was telling you about this. See, Niti Aayog was replaced in the place of Planning Commission of India. From independence, our governments have taken up Planning Commission for progressive development of India. 5-year plans used to run. Every 5 years, the governments used to keep some targets and they used to progress in that. So in 2015, Prime Minister Modi has replaced that Planning Commission and he kept Niti Aayog in its place. So Niti means here National Institution for Transforming India. So this organization will generally work for transforming India into a progressive nation. And so generally it works under the government of India. Its headquarters is at New Delhi, and Prime Minister will act as a chairman by default, and there will be a vice chairman who will be the civil servants of the government, and the other organization called Atomic Energy Commission. See, these atomic elements like lithium, uranium, thorium, they are very important elements in the growth of countries fuel progress. So in modern days these will be used, this uranium and all, they'll be purified and they'll be used for making nuclear weapons. Sometimes these are used for generating electricity, which is a major thing for the country's progress. Say we require electricity more, and we cannot depend more on these resources like coal and other things still. So atomic elements will be purified, and from that will be extracting the electricity power and other things. And there is atomic elements to deal all such things. Atomic Energy Commission will be there, for all such important functioning bodies of the country. He will act as a chairman. So till now we have been discussing the role of prime ministers in various areas or sectors, and what we conclude is he is a supreme at his power and position. So within the limits of constitution, the prime minister will act as a supreme head of the nation, and that doesn't mean that he is allowed completely to become supreme and he can even dictate terms for the nation. So it is not in that way. There are even some checks on the authority of the prime minister. That means there are some limitations. There is some control over this office of prime minister. So let us see how there are checks on the authority of prime minister. Though the prime minister is the leader of the majority party, he has to ensure the support of his ministers as well as his party. See, he will be generally elected by the own party members. So once he is elected, then he has to make sure that he should also take other party members into his consideration in whatever policies or major decisions he is making. So he may not be influenced by them, but he should have some consultations with them. He should not have that feeling of being supreme and take every decision on his own. So he has to ensure the support of his ministers as well as his party when he is working as a leader of the nation. So it is very important for him to be, to have the support of the political party from which he belongs, as well as the ministers which are functioning under him. So the ministers who are functioning under prime minister as well as the political party to which the prime minister belongs, they both should give their support directly or indirectly, so that the prime minister can exercise his duties very effectively. He cannot ignore the political party from which he belongs, as well as the ministers and who will work under him. So he cannot ignore them and function. And in case of coalition governments, when Prime Minister does not enjoy an absolute majority in Lok Sabha, his position becomes vulnerable. So here, coalition governments, that means few political parties in, suppose I'll explain like this. So in general elections, if no party gets majority vote share, then there is no question of forming of government, because the party which got its majority share will have the capacity to form government. If no party is having majority, during such situations, certain political parties will come together and they will nominate a person as a prime minister candidate and they may form the government. In such coalition government situations, this prime minister will be, he has to be responsible to all the parties which has supported him, and every party might be having its own principles and ideologies, but they have come together and involved in government formation. When government is formed and their common candidate has become prime minister, then the prime minister has to be always in the responsibility of all these parties also. He cannot ignore all these parties and he cannot function on his own. That doesn't mean that they will try to misuse the position of prime minister. It is just that the prime minister is having a check by different parties in coalition governments. When coalition government is there, he cannot become completely free and act on his own. He has to take consideration into, he has to take consideration of opinions of many parties when making major policies of the government, which is check actually. So you can see in the 9th Lok Sabha, so where Chandrasekhar was our prime minister, and where Samajwadi Party and Indian National Congress together formed the central government during that time, and hardly he could run, Chandrasekhar, he could run his government for 1 year. He was just 1 year prime minister, and after which these two parties got some differences, and finally the government could not continue under the leadership of Chandrasekhar. So such will be situations in coalition governments. It happened in India many times, and I'm just showing you the slide of 9th Lok Sabha, where such coalition government had a check on the prime minister's authority. And opposition parties anyhow, they always will be waiting for a chance to criticize the prime minister and his government's policies. So even today you might be seeing in the news channels about how the opposition parties will be criticizing the policies of the government, and how they try to interpret the policies of the government, how they take issues to public and all many things. And along with these all things, even the press, that means both the print media as well as the visual media like newspapers and news channels, they always try to conduct debates and other things, and they try to expose the role of prime minister, and it acts as an indirect check on them. And public, most of all the public who are watching the actions of prime minister or the functions of prime minister, will definitely have a opinion on him, and they will definitely be waiting for the chance if prime minister does not working for their purpose. So in general elections, the public will be taking this as an opportunity, and they may change their wishes. So all these people will act as a check on the authority of prime minister. Let us now study about the collective responsibility of the Council of Ministers. So the Council of Ministers include the prime minister, cabinet ministers, deputy ministers, and all other ministers. So under Article 75 and subclause 3 of our constitution, this collective responsibility has been described. So what do you mean by collective responsibility? It is nothing but the responsibility which is shared equally by all members of the Council of Ministers. And here all the members who belong to Council of Ministers, they are responsible equally to the House of People, which is Lok Sabha. So all the ministers are directly responsible to Lok Sabha. And the principle of collective responsibility, let us study in detail. So in which situations or what circumstances this collective responsibility will arise with the Council of Ministers? The decisions taken in the cabinet. So whatever decisions have been taken in the cabinet, such decisions will be equally applicable to all other ministers, let them belong any category. They all have to share that decision. So it is equally applicable for all the members in sharing that decision. That decision is not, suppose if somebody asks that no, what happened to the decision of the cabinet, then you cannot say that no, Prime Minister's decision. It is the decision of cabinet. Who, if somebody asks you who took the decision, then there the answer will be like it is a decision of cabinet. There they won't say it is a decision of prime minister or it is a decision of defense minister. All these ministers in cabinet, they will share their ideas and opinions. Finally they will come to a decision, and it becomes a common responsibility or a common applicably, and commonly these decisions will be applicable to all the ministers. If some minister doesn't like, then he can resign and he can go away, but he cannot he cannot say no to such decisions when he is as a minister in the council of ministers. So ministers, even though they may differ among themselves on a particular policy, they have to bear this decision. They have to equally apply the decision made in the cabinet, and all ministers jointly share the responsibility for government policies and performance. So the decisions taken by the government or the cabinet will come in the form of policies and laws. These laws and policies may work sometimes and they may fail sometimes due to various reasons. And the ministry, once if the policies work out and better results come, then it becomes definitely a common responsibility. Even if they don't work, it becomes common responsibility for all the ministers to bear that. So if good or bad, whatever comes with the decisions they made or the policies they made, they have to equally share that results. And the ministers must function as a team in supporting and defending government policies inside as well as outside parliament. So inside the parliament, all the ministers will stand on a common platform regarding the policies of the government. So they cannot say their individual opinions and other things. They should defend the policies of the government, and they should always on the side of protecting the policies which they made. And even outside the parliament, the ministers cannot speak against the decisions they have made. And also a vote of no confidence against one minister is a vote against the whole ministry. Suppose if a minister has done some mistake and a no confidence motion is passed against a single minister, then it shows that, as we said, that it is collective responsibility in all issues. And how come one minister acts differently there? So even there, the vote of no confidence gets shared among all other ministers, and the whole ministry has to resign. And such a ministry that has lost confidence of Lok Sabha will finally resign from the house, where generally chances of government collapse will happen. So this is about the collective responsibility of Council of Ministers. See, along with the collective responsibility as a whole team, each minister also has their individual responsibility. See, until and unless every minister has individual responsibilities, they cannot fit into the model of collective responsibility. So what is this individual responsibility? The ministers are individually, that means every single minister, are individually responsible to the president. That is, they hold their office during the pleasure of the president and may be dismissed by him, of course on the advice of prime minister. So here the ministers in general or in principle, they will stay in their office and they be enjoying the ministry, or they will be having the privileges, or they will be functioning as ministers until the pleasure of the president works. So here the pleasure of the president is not like it is the personal choice of the president or personal opinions of the president. In the personal opinion of president, a minister should function. It is not like that. Here the pleasure of the president means, so until a minister functions as per the provisions of constitution, it comes under the pleasure of the president. If every minister functions constitutionally, then it becomes the pleasure of the president. So there the other question of dismissal or other things won't arise. But if somebody is functioning beyond constitution, then it becomes the displeasure of the president and he may be dismissed from the office by president. And as you know, the president cannot exercise such functions on his own. Definitely the president will take the advice of prime minister in such issues and he will exercise his powers. And here a minister may be having his confidence in the legislative body to which he belongs, but if he is constitutionally he is functioning beyond, then he may be dismissed from the office. And each minister is answerable to parliament for the department under his control, and it is obligatory for him to answer all the questions asked by MPs. So to whichever department the minister may belong, he should be responsible to that department. Whatever good or whatever bad happens to the department to which he belongs, suppose defense is there, if anybody, the minister belonging to defense, if any wrong thing happens, then it is the minister's responsibility there, and he is answerable to the house of people. He cannot just escape there. And you know that in parliamentary procedures we have studied various forms of questions asked by MPs and the legislatures there. So there the minister is definitely supposed to answer all those questions. He cannot say that I cannot answer these questions, I don't have answer for this. He cannot escape so easily there. He has responsibility of his ministry and he has to answer all such questions, so that everybody will know that he is working in a transparent way. And every minister is responsible for matters such as personal lapse, that means their personal behavior. Okay, so if they are good at their behavior in parliament, how they are functioning with their departments, all such come under personal lapse, that means personal behavior. So if a minister is working very rudely or very politely, it is all his personal lapse. So the bad behavior of a minister is his responsibility. Nobody is responsible for that. And departure from official policy by him or by his department. Suppose the cabinet policy is one thing, and if the minister tries to deviate from the policy of the cabinet, and if he tries to take the policy in a different way, then he is held responsible for such deviations from the policies made by government. And breach of oath of secrecy and so on. I told you, when they take the oath to the office of their ministry, they will say that they will not disclose the information either knowingly or unknowingly, without the prior intimation of the government or the head of the government. He should not disclose certain information to outsiders, and it acts as a oath of secrecy. And if somebody breaches it, that means if he tries to violate this oath and if he says certain sensible information to outsiders, then it is called as breach of oath of secrecy. And there are many such incidents in our political system where a particular minister has resigned even. So individually he took responsibility. Suppose a minister is handling women and child welfare, and there are many atrocities are happening in the country on women, and he is unable to deal such situation. Then what happens? The minister has to take responsibility for his failure of implementation of the policy, and he has to resign. There are many incidents where such ministers have resigned on their own, taking individual responsibilities. So this is about individual responsibility of the Council of Ministers, with which the chapter ends here.